Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Are we good to go? All right. Good afternoon. Let's start off by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Today it's my pleasure to be here today with Premier John Horgan, as well Narissa Allen, who's the president of the Black Business Association of BC. Today we will be talking about an exciting program that we launched just over a month ago, Launch Online, which has been a huge success. Originally, the purpose of the program was to support around 1,500 businesses, and we've seen a huge uptake in participation in that program. It helps businesses get their e-commerce set up, allows businesses to adapt and grow their potential customer pool. So with that, I would like to invite the Premier up to announce today's changes.
Thanks very much, Ravi. It's good to see everyone this morning, or now into the afternoon. I want to thank Narissa Allen for joining us virtually from Vancouver to talk about the impact of this program on her business association, the Black Business Association of British Columbia. I want to also just take a moment to thank all of the businesses that have been working tirelessly over the past 12 months to meet public health guidelines, to work through WorkSafe to ensure that their place of business was safe for themselves, for their workers, and for their customers. It's been a very challenging time. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before, but I just wanted to say once again, as we see the finish line, we're so close. We're so close with hundreds of thousands of vaccines having been already delivered, with many hundreds of thousands ready to come in the next number of days and weeks. I want to say to those businesses who have been hanging in there, keep going. We're here for you. We put in place numerous programs, as Ravi has outlined. But the one I want to talk about today is the launch of Online BC and the e-commerce explosion we've seen as a result of COVID-19. E-commerce sales doubled in 2020, and we can expect to see further increases in years ahead, not just as a result of public health measures, of course, but because consumer habits are changing and the need for entrepreneurs and retailers particularly to change has to be at the same pace. In February, just a few weeks ago, when we launched Online BC, or the Launch Online program, we put $12 million in place, and we assumed that would mean $7,500 grants for businesses that were eligible. Well, we've had over 3,500 applications. We've exhausted the initial $12 million, and we are announcing today an additional $30 million to expand the program and include not just those who are selling a good, but those that are also selling services. This is very, very good news for our hard-hit tourism sector. This will assist with online bookings. It will allow businesses who do not have a robust online presence to get the help that they need so that we can bring in professional help. This will expand, obviously, our ability to use technologies, to use the internet, to do business, whether it be goods or services. And this is pretty exciting for businesses across BC. I want to make sure also, we've heard many, many times that although we are all in a storm, we're all in different boats as well, whether we're in rural BC, remote parts of British Columbia, or in our urban centers. And it's had a disproportionate impact on people as well, largely people of color, largely women. And so although we hived out 25% of this program for Indigenous and rural businesses, we're expanding that carve-out to 30%, and it will also include people of color, people who are running businesses who are having the challenges that we've talked about for so many months now. This is good news. Narissa will talk about the consequences for her and her sector. But for all British Columbians, I want to say that I know in my own household there's an apprehension about online shopping. We like to go into the local businesses in our community, but those local businesses are now going online to keep alive. And I want to encourage people to always shop locally, of course, but you don't have to go into the storefront any longer. You can go online. This program is designed to make sure that as we come out of COVID, we've got the technologies in place, we've got the dollars behind this to make sure it will work. Minister Calon has been meticulous in setting this up. He has been reaching out and listening to people. That's why we've expanded away from just durable goods to services as well. That means tourism operators, hairstylists, not-for-profits, a whole range of groups and companies will be able to access this money, and it will help them get back on their feet faster. This has been an extraordinary 12 months. We all get that. But over the next few months, I want British Columbians to focus on one thing and one thing only. Do not stop now. Continue to follow public health orders. Continue to wait for your turn to get a vaccination. Follow these orders. Be safe, be well, be kind to each other. And by the summer, we'll be back to something resembling normal. I can't wait for that, and I know that's the same for British Columbians in every part of the province. I'll pass it back to Ravi now, and then we'll get into questions after that.
Thank you very much, Premier, and thank you for sharing the good news. Certainly going to be welcome news for many businesses throughout BC, and these dollars are going to go a long way to help our businesses adapt, to make the investments and the changes they need for their businesses to grow their markets. And I don't want to echo the Premier's comments about how difficult of a year it's been for our businesses, but we have just an incredibly resilient business community here in BC. And I'm very proud of all the innovation and the work that they've done. As the Premier mentioned, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats, and we know that the impacts of the pandemic has disproportionately impacted Indigenous, Black, people of color, new immigrant communities, women. And so I'm particularly proud of the addition of 30% of dollars dedicated to support Black, Indigenous, people of color, as well as rural communities, to ensure that those communities get access to those dollars to be able to make the investments to transition to the new way of doing business. And so with that today, we have Narissa Allen, who is a business leader and also the head of the Black Business Association of BC. And so I'd like to invite Narissa Allen to speak about the benefits of today's announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Calon, and thank you for having me here today, Premier. This pandemic has impacted so many people in BC and across Canada. It's disproportionately affected the communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. With over 400 Black businesses in BC alone, we're really happy to see that funds have been carved out and set aside for the Black, Indigenous, and people of color business communities. This change, along with and combining the opening of the grant to service-based businesses, is really going to make a big difference in the recovery of our businesses. Market access is a big tool, is a key function in the recovery of our businesses. Our barbers, our salons, our consultants, our RMTs, our physiotherapists, consultants, entertainers, our tradespeople. This is just a subsection of the service-based businesses that are going to benefit from this opening of the grant to service-based businesses. With market access, what the online grant program will do is it's going to allow these businesses to diversify their portfolio, and it'll allow them to increase their market access, which is essential for scaling and growing their businesses and keeping alive during this pandemic and during this time of need. We have to ensure that the tools are available for our businesses to pivot, and that's crucial to ensure that our economy is resilient. We, as business owners and as businesses in BC, we deserve support from the government, and we're happy to see that they've invested additional funding to the business community here in BC. I hope that, and I'm hopeful that this funding is not only going to allow for businesses to recover at a faster rate and pivot to online and increase their marketing and their sales, but it's also going to help them to mitigate risk in the future. So once again, thank you for the changes to the Launch Online Grant Program. Thank you for having me here today, and I'll pass it back to you. Thank you, Premier and Minister Kalam.
Thank you so much, Narissa, and of course, thank you so much, Premier. I'll just say that the pace of change, the change that we've seen in the last year, most would not have expected that to happen for 7 to 10 years, and that pace is not about to slow down. And so today's announcement will help all our businesses to adapt to that change, to get ahead of that change, in partnership with our 3 main pillars for economic recovery, which is led by innovation, ensuring that we're having a sustainable recovery and that the recovery is felt equally amongst all communities. And so the addition for 30% dollars for BIPOC and rural businesses, I think, is going to go a long way. And I'll just end with saying something that the Premier highlighted, which is please buy local. Support your local businesses. Now businesses will be able to set up their online functions. Please look out for your local business. They need us and we need them. So with that, I will pass it over to the moderators for a Q&A.
A reminder to media on the line, please press *1 to get into the queue today. Our first question comes from Richard Zisman, Global News.
On that issue of small business, to our Irishman-in-Chief, Premier Horgan, there are a lot of businesses that rely heavily on St. Patrick's Day, the money that will come in today. They're not seeing this. What do you say to these sort of businesses who are struggling through another year where they will not reap the benefits of this? And what do you say to British Columbians who are thinking about celebrating today and how they can do St. Patrick's Day differently?
Well, first of all, to all British Columbians, a very happy St. Patrick's Day, and to the Zuzmans from County Kerry, particular happy St. Paddy's Day to you. This is a time of celebration for the Irish diaspora across the world, and it is a day that I've marked for as long as I can remember. My father was born in Ireland. I have an Irish passport. It's a big deal for me. But I'm finding different ways to celebrate. I'll be reaching out to the Irish Consul General. We will be perhaps having sipping a thing or two later in the day and celebrating for all of us around the world. Now, for those businesses that had the Irish Times here and locally and other drinking establishments that normally have robust business on St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes people who don't go out to bars at all throughout the year but like to go on St. Patrick's Day will not be doing that beyond 8 o'clock this evening. And I appreciate that's a sacrifice, yet another sacrifice from the hospitality sector. But we have been working for the past 12 months with the hospitality sector to do our level best to make sure there are not too many disruptions in these special events. But regrettably, the case counts continue to persist in the 500 region, and we are still a distance away from complete vaccination of the people of British Columbia. So I ask for those publicans and those in the hospitality sector to enjoy the day to 8 o'clock this evening, and then prepare for next year, which will be the best of all possible St. Paddy's Days. And to all British Columbians, enjoy a day of good cheer. Enjoy your friends who are Irish. Reflect on what life might have been had you been Irish. And with that, I'll stop talking about St. Patrick's Day.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
I do. I just want to ask you about lumber prices. We've been seeing record-breaking lumber prices, and can you give us a sense of what impact that has on the local economy here? On one side, it puts pressure on home building, but also benefits our forestry sector. Can you talk about the pros and cons of these record-high prices that we're seeing?
Well, thank you very much for the question, because I, of course, monitor commodity prices as a resource-dependent or resource economy here in British Columbia. We look at gold, copper, zinc prices, lumber prices, pulp prices, metallurgical coal to make the steel we need to build a modern economy. All of those indicators have been fairly positive throughout the pandemic, but the cost of lumber, the price for lumber is just off the charts. I looked yesterday, it was $1,200, 1,000 board feet. It was hovering around $900. I spoke to industry leaders. They're cautious, obviously. and optimistic with the prices they're seeing, but we still have trade barriers with the United States. I'm grateful that Prime Minister Trudeau raised the softwood lumber dispute in his first call with President Joe Biden. I've been in consultation with the Canadian ambassador in Washington, not just about daylight savings time, although that is a pressing issue, but also about how we can get a resolution finally to the 10-year, and every 10 years we get into a battle with a small group of lumber producers in the United States that have an undue amount of sway on the decision makers in Washington, D.C. I'm hopeful we can get back to a free and fair trading relationship so that we can truly benefit from what are astronomically high forestry prices. Having said that, we still have a significant amount of work to do in the forest industry. We need to move from high volume, which of course these prices will encourage companies to continue to harvest at unsustainable rates, perhaps, to catch on to these extraordinary prices, but we need to focus on the longer term. We need to make sure as we build out our forest industry, we're adding more value. That's why prior to taking on his current appointment, I asked Ravi to be the parliamentary secretary on mass timber, and I want British Columbia to be the center for mass timber development in North America. We're well on our way to doing that, but we also have to acknowledge that these prices will not last forever. It's understandable that businesses who have had tough times want to take advantage of the good times, but we need to have a longer-term view on our forest industry. It's not just about old growth. It's not just about pine beetle. These are things that people are not up to speed on the daily nuances of forest policy, hear a lot about. But at the end of the day, we need a sustainable industry. We need to keep the jobs in communities across BC, but we need to make sure that our forests are there for generations to come. It's a renewable resource. It's very, very profitable at the moment. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. We need to plan for the future, and that's adding more value to our very precious resource.
Our next question is from Tanya Fletcher, CBC.
Premier, we've put similar questions to Dr. Henry and Minister Dix this week, but I think people want to hear from the Premier. In the past month, critical care hospitalizations have gone up 40%. So is the province comfortable easing restrictions while hospitalizations rise simply because a much smaller percentage of people are dying now? And how big of a struggle is it making those decisions, and do you worry that they're the right ones?
Well, thank you for the question. And of course, every day we are faced with very challenging decisions, not just in healthcare, but in a range of areas. I knew that when I signed on for the job. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the obvious. These are oftentimes extremely difficult decisions to make. I'm in regular contact with Minister Dix, of course, and also regular briefings from Dr. Henry and her team at Public Health. We believe that the vaccination program is in really good place right now. We've been accelerating stages as we've seen more supply come on stream. But the persistent caseload of about 500 to 550 over the past number of weeks is disconcerting. Dr. Henry makes that clear every day she is before you, and when she releases information when it's in a press release form. So we grapple with these issues on a daily basis. Minister Dix is confident that the capacity within our acute care system is robust, and over the past 12 months we've learned a lot. The frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the care aides, everyone in our acute care system has adapted how they work to make sure that we can continue to keep open and get surgeries done, provide emergency services when they're required, and also convalescent time for those who need it. I'm confident that we're on the right track. It's a very good question, and I appreciate why people would say these hospitalizations are creeping up. But it has been a slow increase, and as we start to vaccinate more, we'll see a reduction in caseloads and hopefully a reduction in hospitalizations as well.
Tanya, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, along the same lines. I mean, Ontario has declared a third wave the same week that BC announced it's once again allowing small outdoor gatherings, for example. So what do you say to people who don't understand the rationale for us kind of going the opposite direction and lifting measures when, as you've noted twice now, daily case counts haven't budged for weeks and variants are still spreading? Like, is there a concern that we'll see cases rise? You know, what if spring break triggers a spike in transmission before the mass vaccination effort kicks in?
Well, certainly, I've tried not to compare British Columbia's results to other jurisdictions in the country. We're all different. It's not just population size. It's not just densities in Toronto versus densities in Vancouver or Victoria. It's also weather. The good people of Eastern Canada are still in the grip of winter coming to spring as we're saying farewell to our daffodils and hello to our tulips. So the respiratory seasons are different across the country. We take that into consideration. We've had a very, very mild flu season. I give full credit to Dr. Henry and Minister Dix for having the largest influenza vaccination program we've ever had, as well as, of course, the physical distancing measures that people have been fastidiously practicing. And I'm grateful for the good sense and the commitment of the people of BC. But we're not in the same place as Ontario, and we know that during the spring break, people are going to want to get outdoors. Why not? And we also know that young people particularly want to be with their peers. And if we can manage that in reasonable numbers of people who are often together in any event, whether they be school chums or families that are involved in the same extracurricular activities, I think that's good for our mental well-being. It's also good as we come out of the pandemic. Are we concerned about the increase in variants? Absolutely. Again, Dr. Henry is better placed to answer specific questions about that. That's been a deliberate approach by our government to allow the public health officials to speak directly to British Columbians rather than have intermediaries like myself. But I assure you that I fret as much about these numbers as Dr. Henry does and Minister Dix. We are in constant contact, and I look at I wait anxiously for the sheet to arrive for each day's count, just as you in the media and people across BC do. I'm confident that we're in a good place. We are going from scarcity of vaccines to abundance, thank goodness. And we have a very solid plan in place. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more tomorrow. The plan has to be nimble and adaptive, just as our responses to the economic challenges have to be nimble and adaptive.
Our next question is from Rob Shaw, Check TV.
Hi, Premier. I just wanted to ask you, as you succeed in vaccinating more people, there's going to be more pressure on the government to relax maybe rules for the people who are vaccinated. I know the U.S. CDC is going that route, saying if you get the vaccine, you can do certain things unvaccinated people can't. I'm just wondering from you, do you anticipate at any point during this vaccination rollout over the next few months, your government will be allowing people who are vaccinated to do special things that people who aren't vaccinated can't?
Well, yes, is the simple answer, Rob, but as you know, there are no simple answers in this situation. We want people to be absolutely vigilant. We have done so well. We need to keep true to what we've been doing for the past 12 months as the vaccination program rolls out. Having said that, as more and more people are vaccinated, hundreds of thousands already with hundreds of thousands more to come, I think we will see relaxing, as we already have with some of the regulations, as was referenced in the earlier question during this availability. And we'll have more to say as we can, but I don't want to give false hope, nor do I want to give an indication to any group or sector that they're in a position to change their behavior until such time as Dr. Henry has looked at the science, looked at the evidence, tracked the issues like where is the variant, how virulent is it, what is our vaccination rollout doing for various cohorts, are we addressing those frontline workers that we'll be talking about tomorrow. All of those things have to come together for us to start saying definitively that there's going to be relief for individuals or sectors.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
So I'm sure we're talking about the same thing here. I'm asking about whether people who get vaccinated at some point will be able to do things that non-vaccinated people aren't allowed to do. And maybe you can just explain more of what when you say yes on that, and kind of the debate in your mind that must exist between, the safety side of being vaccinated, but the fairness side of people who are waiting through no fault of their own based on their age to get the vaccine and might not think it's fair that other people can do things they can't. Can you expand on that?
Well, again, I'm trying to avoid that, Rob, without being too obstinate about it. We will be making changes as more people get vaccinated. Those that have been vaccinated will have a bit more flexibility, of course, because they're less risk to the people around them, and the people around them are less risk to them. But I don't want to speculate on any group. I don't want to speculate, on any activity that may well be available to those that have been vaccinated before it's available to anyone else. These are determinations that Dr. Henry comes to with her team at Public Health, which are working every minute of every day to absorb data from around the world, as you know. This is some have called it a real-time experiment, and as we get more vaccines into more people around the world, we'll have more data to build upon the decisions that we make going forward. So it really isn't as simple as I've had a vaccine, I can go and do whatever I want. It's just not that simple. We need to make sure that we're doing this in a methodical way. We've been doing that for 12 months, so I see no reason to deviate from that just because we're near the end of the race.
Next question is from Lisa Euston, News 1130.
Sorry, I just had a hard time getting my phone to do what I wanted it to do. Premier, speaking about vaccinations, hearing the Biden administration is saying that Canada and Mexico will be the first places that they will export vaccines. They have millions of AstraZeneca doses not being used. I know this is a federal issue, but I'm wondering, have you heard anything about timing of Canada getting more vaccine from the U.S.?
Not specifically from the U.S., but we have in our regular conversations with the federal government at the political level with the Prime Minister as well, Minister Dix and Minister Hadju, as well as officials through intergovernmental relations and public health, are monitoring virtually every vial that comes into the country. We were, as you know, struggling nationally in February with expectations being very, very high, and our ability to deliver collectively from coast to coast to coast being relatively low. So we are monitoring literally every vial that comes into the country and how quickly can we get it from an airport somewhere into a human being and into a citizen, so that we can get through the 4.5 to 5 million British Columbians that we expect to vaccinate. And again, that goes triple for Ontario, a little bit less for Alberta, and population basis, you can figure that out across the board. But if the United States gets to a position where they're prepared to share with us, we're certainly going to be prepared to take it up. And again, that speaks to the nimbleness of our vaccination plan. Dr. Penny Ballum, who is overseeing it, has been making amendments, as you know, from the beginning. And those amendments have always been done based on more information, based on more supply, based on our ability to include more private sector assistance. For example, pharmacies, which will be very much part of the plan in the long term, was not necessary to be part of the
happen each day and each week?
Well, again, thank you for that, because it's good to put it all in context. This is an extraordinary undertaking that we have never done before. I find myself saying that almost all the time over the past 12 months. This has never happened before, but yet here we are. And the resilience of our public health officials, our frontline workers, those who have been going to work to keep food on our table, going to work to ensure that surgeries are done, going to work to protect people in communities. All of those individuals have been giving and giving and giving, and I know the enthusiasm that they feel when they see that they will be vaccinated shortly. To our elders, to our grandparents and our parents, this is an exciting time. But there will be bumps along the road. We need to prepare for that, and I would love to say that we are worry-free, but we're not. And although vaccine is now coming in sufficient amounts that we can accelerate our age cohorts, so we can accelerate the spacing, we can accelerate how we deal with outbreaks. This is very important. Dr. Henry's been crystal clear on this. The AstraZeneca, for example, is easier to use than the Moderna and the Pfizer in terms of its shelf life. Save and except the first batch that we received, which has an expiry date of next month. But it's easier to transport, it's easier to maintain. All of that will mean that we can continue to adapt our plan to meet the needs as things change. But things will, I can assure you, Lisa, things will change between now and the time we're done.
Our next question is from Rob Buffum, CTV Vancouver Island.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my question. I guess I'm wondering about your thoughts on, we've talked about the explosion, or you're referencing the explosion of e-commerce. Do you have any concerns that this help for businesses expanding their online presence may come at the expense of some other businesses, let's say on government, trade, or elsewhere, that rely on foot traffic?
Well, I don't. I think that what we want to do is to give those businesses that rely on foot traffic. This is where the service piece comes into play, and I'll ask Ravi to expand upon that. But if you're in the hairstyling business, not something that I'm looking for regularly, but I know lots of people do. Expanding your online presence means that you can do bookings. For right now, you're not able to, while you have a customer, take a phone call. That's part of the public health orders. So expanding your ability to book online means that you can populate your foot traffic in a way that makes sense to the work you're doing. I think it's going to be a net benefit across the board. But I'll ask Ravi to answer that because it is a valid question. We want to enhance foot traffic by giving this online tool to those businesses. And again, local businesses are the foundation of our communities. They're the people that sponsor the local ball teams. They're the people that volunteer on weekends. They raise money for various interests in community. We want and need vibrant small businesses in our urban centers and in our rural communities. The online tool will only enhance that, in my opinion, and I'll ask Ravi to fill in the details.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I would say that I was just talking to a friend the other day about what we want to do when the pandemic's over, and I said I can't wait to go to restaurants again with friends, and he said he can't wait to go to bookstores again, and so I suspect that people want to be able to go to visit their local business, the one that they love to visit when we're through the pandemic, but there's certainly a trend that's been happening, the way consumers are consuming products, which is shifting to online. And so this is complementing that. Some businesses will move completely to online as time changes. Some businesses will see both. They'll continue to have their traditional way of doing business, but they'll be able to now have their online presence and actually reach more clients. Many businesses now will be able to sell both their services and their products to markets outside of British Columbia. But again, as the Premier said, we are looking forward to people being able to shop local, support their local businesses, and so those businesses that don't have the ability to reach their consumers will now have the financial support from the provincial government to be able to do so.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
I do, and it relates to today's announcement as well. I'm wondering about in relation to the expansion to accommodate businesses that offer services. I may have misunderstood, but I spoke to somebody earlier today who said they knew of a dentist, for example, who'd availed themselves of this grant already. Is it new today that businesses that sold services like whale watching companies or dentists or barbershops, they weren't able to apply for this earlier
but it's now the criteria have been changed. I'm wondering if you can also answer, businesses that had a website already were not eligible for this grant unless they had sort of a rudimentary website. Is this also going to allow businesses that have a website but want to spruce it up in a meaningful way to do so?
Well, there's a lot there, and my first response, Rob, would be that I know you work for a large infotech company. You need to work on your connectivity. You're very difficult to understand, so I hope that you don't take that the wrong way. But I'll ask Ravi to fill in the gaps as we heard them. But what I heard from you is, does this now mean that massage therapists, other service providers, consultants can now access the program? And the answer is that's correct. Ravi did a consultation with his Small Business Roundtable and others through the chambers, the BC Chamber as well as local chambers, to hear what the need was. And we heard loudly that although it's critically important for those who have goods that they need to move, that the online presence was a great asset. It's also a great asset for those who provide services, and that's why we made the change. But I'll pass it back to Ravi to finish on that.
Yes, again, thank you. So the three key changes that we're making today is an additional $30 million available for businesses to be able to make this transition online. A targeted 30% that will be dedicated to BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, people of color, as well as rural communities. And yes, as mentioned, service sector now can apply. And so, whether you're bear viewing or you're a massage therapist or a tourism operators that do tours, now you can apply. Businesses that already have a website but have found that it's not adequate. We've heard from many businesses that they did it themselves and didn't have the financial means to do so. They can also apply for this, get professional help and professional services in order to expand their site and put on other features that perhaps they couldn't do themselves. So it's for businesses that want to shift online, and also for businesses that are already online but feel that they need to invest more in their online presence.
Next question today comes from Parmeet Kamra, Red FM.
Hi, Premier. My question is regarding the result which was revealed by BCTF. So yesterday, BCTF president shared the data by Workforce BC, in which it was revealed that COVID-19 claim filed by elementary school teachers is 3 times more than the middle school teachers. Also, the variant cases which are rising in school is concerning. Teachers are asking for more strict measures, but Dr. Bonnie Henry is not agreeing to it. Do you think that teachers' demand is fair, and what can we do about it?
Well, thank you for the question, and I absolutely understand the anxiety of people who work in the K-12 system, parents who desperately want their kids to be in class so that they not only are freed up to do their activity throughout the days, but most importantly, so that their youngsters can get the education that they need, the socialization with their peers that's so critically important to young people. I did see the data from WorkSafe, and I have to say, of the almost 70,000 people who work in the K-12 sector, about 30 to 35,000 teachers, and then other support workers, the number of applications to WorkSafe is extremely small, particularly relative to other sectors of the economy. So although I understand the anxiety that the BC Teachers Federation continues to raise for their members, I also understand that we are confident as we come into the spring, or we're in the spring break in many districts, and we'll be certainly going into all districts in the next 7 days or so, that we're near the end, and we are going to continue to make improvements in our plans in K-12, working with our partners in the Teachers Federation, CUPE, school board trustees, parents, superintendents, and others, to make sure we're providing a quality education for young people, most importantly, but also being mindful that as a workplace, we need to ensure that we have the best practices that we can, and we have been, in my opinion, doing an extraordinary job of that. And I lift my hands to teachers who have gone into classrooms, continuing to do their job, continuing to love and care for the kids in their charge each and every day. I say to them, it's March, we're heading to April, it'll be June before we know it, and I'm confident that as the vaccine rollout is further enhanced, the sector will be very pleased with how that will look, and we'll be in a good place come September for a return to normalcy. Thank goodness for that.
Parmi, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Regarding the vaccine rollout program, also, Dr. Bonnie Henry says that the workers who are working in industrial camps or farms, they should be prioritized for the vaccination. And the teachers, they are disappointed with this announcement. Do you think that their disappointment is fair or genuine?
Well, I can't speak to their disappointment. That's entirely up to them, and they are more than capable of dealing with that. What I can say is that we can't stigmatize people who contract a virus. Nobody sets out to be ill. Nobody wants to be afflicted by COVID-19. What we have been doing is looking at the outbreaks as they've occurred, and we've been taking steps to address them, whether they be in work camps, whether they be in poultry facilities, whether they be in any other endeavor within our communities. We are vaccinating the entire community of Prince Rupert and Port Edward because we saw for months and months and months no cases, and then we saw a spike, and an increasing persistent spike. And so with an abundance of vaccines, we took the opportunity through the guidance of Dr. Henry and her team and Northern Health in that instance to go directly to a problem. And we'll continue to go directly to problems as they emerge. The challenges for teachers in classrooms are different in different parts of the province. Certainly there are challenges in Fraser Health that we're absolutely aware of, and we've been working closely with the superintendent in Surrey and in other parts of the superintendents in other parts of Fraser Health to make sure that our classroom plans are robust and are there to protect everybody. And we'll continue to do that until we can get to the place that we all want to be at, where everyone is vaccinated and we're back to something resembling normal, which, as we've been saying all morning, will not be the same as it was a year ago, but let's make sure that it's better.
We have time for one more question today. That'll come from Katie DeRosa, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. Some sad news this morning as a result of there was a woman killed in a BC housing-owned rooming house in downtown Eastside called the Arco. And I'm just wondering if this speaks to whether some of these supportive housing buildings are getting the proper wraparound support, which is also an issue that's been raised by Penticton when they rejected the shelter that's been run by BC Housing in Penticton. So do you have concerns around how these supportive housing facilities are being run, and how can the province do a better job to make sure that municipalities are supported?
Well, we're trying every day to do a better job. We inherited what we inherited when we came to government, and we set about trying to fix the things that were in front of us each and every day. Sometimes we hit the mark, other times we acknowledge that we have more work to do. I'm not familiar with the case from the downtown east side, but I do know that we're working with the city of Penticton to try and find a way forward to address the needs of the people of Penticton. These are vulnerable populations, through no fault of their own, find themselves without a roof over their head. COVID has compounded the challenges that we face. We all know that. And it's meant that we've had to do things differently. We need to make sure that when our post-secondary institutions open up fully in the fall, that we are training more social workers, training more licensed practical nurses, training more people to address the mental health challenges in our communities. What I've heard repeatedly from the Union of BC Municipalities, which includes, of course, Penticton, is that we need to do more at the provincial level. We've appealed to the federal government for more funding through the Canada Health Transfer so that we can have the resources that British Columbians obviously understand we need to put into delivering services, wraparound services for vulnerable populations, particularly those grappling with addictions and mental health challenges. We need more resources to do that. The best way for us to come out of COVID-19, in my opinion, is for the federal government to renew the national commitment to publicly funded health care that meets the needs of everybody. That's what I'm going to be. It's my mission, quite frankly. Every time I talk to the Prime Minister, spoke to the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, earlier in the week, every time I talk to Ottawa, I say, let's have a new vision for health care. We need it. British Columbians will be demanding it.
Katie, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, specifically in regards to Vancouver, we have seen some quite high-profile incidents of violence, including the woman who was killed and the individual was tracked back to Strathcona Park. So I'm just wondering if you could sort of expand on, in regards to some of these incidents of violence, where is the balance between providing proper supports and providing policing and, again, protecting individuals who live in either these encampments or who live in the supported housing facilities like this victim today?
Well, and again, a victim here in Victoria at Beacon Hill Park, or just outside of Beacon Hill Park, I stopped with my friend Carol James to spend a moment at the memorial that's building on Dallas Road. And memorials, too many memorials, quite frankly, whether it be on the Highway of Tears, whether it be in the downtown east side, whether it be in any community in British Columbia, as a result of reckless violence, unexplainable violence against people, largely women, is just not acceptable. And that's why we need to talk about, as we are, revamping the Police Act, not to reduce public safety, but to relieve those that are responsible for public safety from also being social workers and mental health experts. That means investments in healthcare. That means ensuring that we have sufficient people to provide the services that our fellow citizens need. It's a pretty straightforward formulation. If we don't have people to provide the services, there are going to be more and more people falling through the cracks, more and more people being exposed to violence or having their lives taken as a result of violence. Do we need to beef up public safety? Of course we do, but there's so much else packed into that statement. And again, I go back to the need for Canada. This is a nonpartisan statement. Liberals, New Democrats, Conservatives all need to focus on what defines us as Canadians over the past 12 months. Public health care. What have people been grateful for more than anything else? The providers of those services. What do we need to do as we come out of COVID-19? Invest in more people to provide the services that citizens require. That means a united national effort, and it has to start with Ottawa recognizing that now more than ever is the time to talk about healthcare, not after the fact, but right now.
Thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have.
Happy St. Paddy's Day, especially.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.